Hi everyone, it's Danny. Okay, so one of my viewers suggested that I make a video on broken down media, specifically how to tell if the media in our orchid pot is broken down and we should actually repot the orchid. So I'll give you a few examples of good media and bad media so you can better see for yourself. Okay, so let's start with bark media. Fresh bark doesn't look very dark brown. As you can see here, I have pretty medium colored brown, if I can call it like that. Also, if you would try to break apart one of these pieces between your fingers, it is almost impossible to do so. Fresh bark will be rigid and pretty hard, so you cannot really break it easily. On the other hand, old bark media looks pretty dark in comparison. It is almost black, and if I try to break a little piece of bark here between my fingers, it breaks really easy. So usually old bark media becomes really mushy after about 2 or 3 years of use, and at this point you should definitely repot your orchid. There you go. Also, fresh bark media shouldn't smell really bad, especially when you water the orchid. It does have a little bit of a smell, but certainly it's not repulsive. However, old bark media, when you water it and it's really broken down, it will start to smell really awful. Kind of like mushrooms, but decomposing mushrooms in a way. I cannot really describe it. It does not smell earthy in any way. It just smells really bad. So when you water your orchid and you feel this sort of a repulsive smell, this is a sign that your media might actually be breaking down and you should repot the orchid. Another sign that the bark media might be a bit too old and maybe you should repot the orchid is the accumulation of salts on top of the media. And I'll show you an example here. So here I have some bark chips. As you can see, they have this white deposits on them. Now this is not fungus. It doesn't really go away if I scratch it. But it does look like it's some sort of salt deposited on the bark chip. This usually happens when the bark media is pretty old, and with watering with fertilizer you get these deposits of salts. So this is another indicator that your bark media might be a bit too old. Now bark media usually lasts you for about 2 years, but it really depends on your orchid. If you have the type of orchid which likes to stay more moist than dry, then the bark chips will start to degrade faster. If, however, you have an orchid that really requires to dry out in between waterings and likes things more ventilated around the root system, bark media can actually last you for about 3 years, like in the case of Camellia orchids. Another preferred media is coconut husk. Now I'll show you an example here. Now in my opinion and in my experience, coconut husk really doesn't last as long as bark chips. And this is because coconut husk can retain more water. Now being that it stays moist for longer than bark, it will start to degrade faster. However, on the internet I read that coconut husk should last you more than bark chips. However, this is really not my experience. As you can see, I have this coconut husk for about a year, and already it's slightly mushy for my taste, and it will continue to degrade very fast. So within a year, my coconut husk is actually turning to mush. Now, coconut husk can be a good media for those orchids who actually like to stay rather moist. However, as I told you, I find that it degrades much faster. Also, it can retain minerals much better than bark chips because it is more porous. Again, here I have some coconut husk which I used for the last 1.5 years with this orchid, and it's already really degrading, and I think I have it under my fingernail and I really dislike it. So I really don't like coconut husk, but there you go. In my opinion, it degrades much faster. So when your coconut husk starts to look like this, also it starts to smell really bad, and also you have the white deposits on top, this is a clear sign that the media is really breaking down and you should repot the orchid. Another media that starts to decompose really fast is sphagnum moss, again because it retains more water. So I would say that both sphagnum moss and coconut husk should last you for about a year. Now sphagnum moss, which is in good condition, should look like this. It is pretty brown, it doesn't look mushy, it does not smell bad in any way. However, bad sphagnum moss should look something like this. Here we go, this is an orchid that was potted in sphagnum moss, and it's a mixture actually, but the sphagnum moss on top stayed so moist that it actually created some algae on the top. Also, it doesn't smell really nice right now, especially when I water it. So at this point, I'm pretty safe to repot this orchid because the sphagnum moss doesn't look so good. Also, it smells pretty bad. So yeah, I'm safe to repot this orchid because this sphagnum moss is not in tip-top condition anymore. Okay everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please excuse my nails, but I didn't want to make them because I knew I was gonna play around with the media today. So I hope you learned something new today, and if you have more suggestions or questions for me, just leave me a comment down below. If you want to see more videos from me, don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date. And if you want to keep in touch, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and you have the links below. I'll see you next time. Bye!